baptism of Jesus, which marks the beginning of his ministry, doesn't happen in this film until about 1429 into the film. And from here on, now we have the adult Jesus. It's probably not a really accurate baptism because John the Baptist's name in Hebrew was Johanan the Immerser, and it suggests dunking in water, not sprinkling, which is shown here. I doubt that Jesus was sprinkled with a little bit of water in say, the Catholic tradition. I think the real Baptist, he would have dunked him into the Jordan River. Biblical accounts of Jesus' baptism are in Matthew 3:13 to 17, and Mark 1:9 to 11, and Luke 3:21 to 23, and John 1:32 to 34. Now, up at the next section where it switches at 15:13, we have the wedding feast, and this is the first time now in this film that they've shown an incident from the Gospel of John. And this actually only is described in the Gospel of John. It's in John chapter 2 verses... it's in John chapter 2 verses 1 to 11. In this depiction of the miracle, some of the major detail of it is inaccurate, because the water jars shown in the film are quite small. They're probably each a lot less than a gallon, whereas in the Bible it says that the water jars that were used in this miracle were 6 stone water jars used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from between 20 to 30 gallons, or in the metric system it would be probably 75 to 115 liters. So the amount is much larger in the actual gospel account in the book of John. Yeah, also note in the film the number is wrong. It shows 4 small water jars, not 6 big ones, as it should be if they were exactly following the biblical account. From approximately 16 minutes and 39 seconds, we have a scene that shows Mary Magdalene at the feet of Jesus. Now note that all the Gospels describe this, but they all put it in a different place in Jesus' ministry. This incident is described in Matthew 26, 6 to 13, Mark 13, 3 to 4, Luke chapter 7, verses 36 to 40, and John chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. Out of all these accounts, only John names her, and he says it's Mary, the sister of Lazarus. Next up, at about 17 minutes and 45 seconds into the film, we now have Jesus in Samaria. And this happens in John chapter 4, which is really early in the Gospels. And only the book of John describes this event. Going back to Jesus' baptism for a moment, because I just grabbed my Bible and looked up Matthew 3:16 here. Matthew 3:16 actually describes Jesus' baptism, and it says that as soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lighting on him. So in other words, if he went up out of the water, he was dunked in the river. He wasn't sprinkled with water. So I think this proves that the sprinkling is definitely false. At 1848 in the film now, Jesus' first healing is shown here now, and it's raising the daughter of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. This happens in the Gospels. It's in Luke and Matthew, and this is in Mark 5:22 to 43, and Luke 8:40 to 56. The director chooses to show us some condensed sections of healings. First, we have Jesus healing a few random generic blind and lame, and then the specific part of the actual incident. At 20 minutes and 12 seconds into the film, we now have the section of where Jesus walks on the water. And this will show what's described in several of the Gospels. Again, considering the primitive state of film technology at the time, this scene is really beautifully filmed. It probably uses some kind of double exposure. And it shows in a really beautiful way. It shows the incident out of the Bible. The only thing is, it says at the time, for the complete story of Jesus walking on the water, he wasn't alone. The disciples were with him, or the apostles were with him, and all that stuff is omitted in this telling of the story, because I think he wanted to make it, he being the director, I think he wanted to make the whole scene simpler, quicker, and cheaper to film. Okay, next is at about approximately 21 minutes is the what's called the Miraculous catch of fish, and this incident is told in several of the Gospels. Although this scene here, while it looks great, it's not accurate compared to how first century fishermen would have went fishing at this time. It's really doubtful, according to references on the ancient practices of fishermen and in the first century, that Peter, James, and John would have had a mini crane on their fishing boat. It's not likely. Ancient fishing was very hard manual labor, and everything was very heavy nets, and a lot of it was all muscle work. Also, in this case, the Bible records that the nets were so heavy, the actual amount of fish was so heavy that they had trouble lifting it into the boat, which is much more than what's shown here. Here, it's the amount of fish shown in the film is so small, it's barely a miracle. Now, next up, at 22 minutes into the film, we have the Raising of Lazarus, and this event is only actually in John's Gospel. It's in John chapter 11. At 23 minutes and 30 seconds into the film, we have the Transfiguration. Now, this is in Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 to 10, Mark 9, 2 to 9, Luke 9, 28 to 36. Like the other scenes in this film that show the spirit world interacting with our physical world, this scene is beautifully filmed and arranged. What is usually called the triumphal entry follows this at about 24 minutes and 24 seconds into the film. At just over 25 minutes into the film, now we have Jesus driving out the money changers from the temple. This is in Matthew 21:12 to 14, Mark 11:15 to 18, Luke 19:45 and 46, and John 2:14 to 17. Also note that in John's Gospel, verse 15 says, Jesus made a whip out of cords and used it to drive all out from the temple area. At just past 26 minutes into the film, we have the Last Supper. This doesn't look much like a real supper. There's no actual food present. They only each drink some wine, which maybe is a good French supper, but it doesn't look very realistic in this context. At a little after 27 minutes into the film, we now have Jesus on the Mount of Olives. So we're getting to pretty much the last few events of Jesus' ministry is coming up here. Now note that Matthew 26:51 and Mark 14:47 say that one of the disciples chopped off the ear of one of the those coming to arrest Jesus. Luke 22:50 says this also. John 18:10 names the specific disciple as Peter. This is, for whatever reason, this is not shown in this film, probably to save space and time.